She can't make that shot. Commander Mercer's voice cut through the observation tower like a knife. 40 elite operators turned to stare. The microphones caught every word. Pentagon observers froze. And 3,247 meters away, Lieutenant Mara Vale, the woman he just publicly humiliated, pressed her eye to the scope. No defense, no argument. Just 7 seconds of bullet flight time to prove him catastrophically wrong. 7 seconds where a disgraced officer with a buried corruption investigation and a fabricated logistics assignment would either vanish into obscurity or shatter every assumption about who deserved respect in the Nevada desert. The trigger pressed, physics took over, and Mercer's entire worldview began its collapse. Before we continue this story, hit that subscribe button right now. You're about to witness 2 hours of the most intense military drama based on real sniper doctrine and leadership accountability. Comment below with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's get back to Nevada. Let's get back to the moment everything changed. The Nevada desert doesn't forgive weakness. 6,200 feet above sea level, the Joint Task Range stretched across 40 square miles of hostile terrain that made grown men question their decisions. The sun hammered down at 1100 hours, turning the sand into a skillet and the air into something you had to chew before breathing. Commander Daniel "Hawk" Mercer stood in the observation tower with his arms crossed, watching the multinational counter-terror drill unfold below. 23 years in naval special warfare, 216 combat missions, 0 patience for anything that wasted his time. "Sir, the logistics officer is requesting range clearance." Mercer didn't turn around. "Tell logistics to stay in their lane. We're running live scenarios." "Sir, she's requesting clearance for the long-range platform." Now Mercer turned. The range officer, a young lieutenant named Para, looked uncomfortable. He held a tablet showing the drill manifest. "Which logistics officer?" Mercer asked slowly. "Vale, sir. Lieutenant Mara Vale. She just transferred in from—" Para glanced at the tablet. "It doesn't say, sir. Classified previous posting." Mercer took the tablet. The profile was thin. Too thin. Combat logistics specialist. Staff assignments in places that didn't make sense. 6 months here, 3 months there. Always overlapping with major operations, but never officially attached. "She's carrying a hard case," Para added. "Custom rifle configuration." Through the tower windows, Mercer spotted her. Lieutenant Vale stood apart from the main group, alone near the equipment staging area. Average height, athletic build, brown hair pulled back tight. Nothing remarkable except for the way she held herself. Still, centered, like someone who'd learned to disappear in plain sight. The hard case beside her was clearly custom work, not standard issue. "What's she want to do with it?" Mercer asked. "She says the scenario distance is within capability range." Mercer looked at the drill parameters again. The hostile target, a training mannequin with thermal signature, had just been relocated across the valley system. 3.247 kilometers, 3,247 meters. Nobody made that shot, not in these conditions. "Tell her negative," Mercer said, handing back the tablet. "We've got actual Tier 1 snipers on deck for this phase." "Sir, she specifically requested—" "Negative." Para hesitated. "Sir, she said she calculated the ballistics already. She says the win window closes in 17 minutes. Something in Mercer's jaw tightened. He'd commanded Special Operations Task Units for 8 years. He knew the type. Overeager staff officers who watched too many movies and thought they understood fieldwork. They were dangerous because they didn't know what they didn't know. "I'll handle this myself," Mercer said. He descended the tower stairs 2 at a time. The desert heat hit him like a wall when he stepped outside. Around the range, operators from SEAL Team 7, Delta Force, British SAS, Australian SASR, and German KSK were preparing for the next phase. This was the Super Bowl of military cooperation. Everyone watching everyone, alliances tested, reputations made or destroyed. Lieutenant Vale saw him coming. She straightened slightly but didn't salute. They were in a field environment, and saluting officers was a good way to mark them for enemy snipers, even in training. Good discipline, Mercer noted unconsciously. Lieutenant Vale, he said, keeping his voice neutral. I understand you're requesting range clearance. Yes, sir. Her voice was quiet but clear. The target placement creates a unique opportunity for long-range interdiction training. That target is at 3,247 meters. Yes, sir. In 11 mile per hour full value crosswind. Measured at 10.7 as of 3 minutes ago, sir. Shifting to 12 by 1400 hours. Mercer studied her face. No bravado, no excitement, just information. You understand that distance exceeds confirmed combat kills by most of the world's military forces. Most, sir, not all. The way she said it made something click in the back of Mercer's mind. Professional, clinical, like someone quoting a fact from personal knowledge rather than research. You're a logistics officer, Mercer said. Currently, sir. Currently? My previous posting was classified, sir. The transfer paperwork should indicate that. It did. But Mercer had assumed it was just bureaucratic nonsense. The Navy loved to classify everything from coffee preferences to parking assignments. Lieutenant, I've got 24 Tier 1 operators on this range right now. Guys who've been doing this for longer than you've been in the service. If that shot could be made, one of them would volunteer. Respectfully, sir, none of them have volunteered. Because it can't be made. Or because they've calculated the risk to their reputation, sir. The words hung in the air like cordite. Behind them, several operators had noticed the conversation. A few were drifting closer, curious. Mercer felt his face flush. This logistics officer, this transfer with a mystery background and a custom rifle case, was essentially calling out his entire task unit. You think you can make this shot? Mercer said flatly. I've calculated the probability, sir. And 63% success rate given current conditions, rising to 71% if I take position in the next 9 minutes before the wind shift. She said it the way someone might report fuel consumption rates. No drama, no ego. That made it worse somehow. Staff Sergeant Chen from Delta Force had wandered over, beer in hand despite it being before noon. Nobody cared about that stuff during joint exercises. She talking about the valley shot? She is, Mercer said. Chen laughed. No offense, LT, but that's a fantasy distance. Math doesn't care about offense, Sergeant, Vale said quietly. More operators were gathering now. Word spread fast in communities like this. Hang on, someone said. Is logistics trying to outsnipe the actual snipers? This I gotta see. Money says she doesn't even get on target. The crowd was growing. Mercer felt control of the situation slipping away from him. Lieutenant, he said, trying to lower his voice, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a professional environment with Pentagon observers. We can't have... Permission to speak freely, sir? Mercer paused. Go ahead. You're worried about embarrassment, Vale said, but the embarrassment isn't in missing. It's in not trying when the math works. Sir. Silence. Chen whistled low. She's got a point, boss. She's got balls, another voice said. If this was combat, Vale continued, and that target was a hostile with American lives in danger, would you tell me the shot was impossible? Or would you want every available option executed? Mercer's throat felt tight. She was right, and she was wrong. And she was making him look like either a coward or a gatekeeper in front of his entire command and international observers. Fine, Mercer heard himself say. You've got 15 minutes to set up. But when you miss, Lieutenant, you're going back to logistics where you belong. Clear? Crystal, sir. Vale picked up her hard case without another word. The crowd parted for her as she walked toward the high ridge position. the only angle with line of sight to the valley target. Chen stepped beside Mercer. "You sure about this, boss?" "No," Mercer admitted. "Want me to put a spotter with her?" "She didn't ask for one." "That's even crazier." Mercer watched Vale's small figure climbing the ridge path. Something about her movement was off. Not wrong, just different. She didn't move like a logistics officer. She moved like someone who'd spent years in hostile terrain, conserving energy, minimizing profile. "Get the ISR feed up," Mercer said. "I want to see this train wreck in real time." "Roger that." The observation tower filled up fast. Everyone wanted to watch. Mercer climbed back up, his mind racing. He'd commanded hundreds of operations. He'd made life-and-death calls in seconds. But right now, he felt something he rarely experienced. Doubt. Not in Vale, in himself. The tower's main display lit up with the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance feed. Multiple angles. The target mannequin across the valley appeared as a heat signature. Wind indicators showed the crosswind building. Atmospheric conditions scrolled across the bottom. Density, altitude, temperature gradients, barometric pressure. Vale's position came online. She'd set up on the eastern ridge, prone position behind a natural rock outcropping. The rifle she'd assembled was beautiful. A custom precision platform that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Getting thermals on her now," the ISR operator said. Vale's heat signature was steady, controlled breathing, no movement except for minor adjustments. "Wind's picking up," Para noted. 12.3 miles per hour now. "She's out of time," someone said. But Vale didn't move. Mercer leaned forward. Through the high magnification camera, he could see her hand making calculations on a small notepad. Old school. No ballistic computer, just math. "Is she seriously doing this by hand?" Chen asked. "Looks like it." "Boss, that's insane. The variables alone." "I see it." But Mercer saw something else too. The way Vale held the pencil, the speed of her calculations, the confidence in each number. This wasn't someone guessing. This was someone who'd done this before, many times before. "Range tower, this is Vale." Her voice came through the comms, calm as morning coffee. "Requesting final confirmation of target position and wind reading. Target bearing 273 degrees, distance 3,247 meters, Para responded. "Wind 12.5 miles per hour, full value left to right." "Copy, stand by." The tower went silent. 30 seconds passed, then Vale's voice again. "Tower, I'm reading a thermal layer at 1,200 meters that's creating additional refraction. Can ISR confirm atmospheric distortion in the Mid-Valley region?" Para checked his screens. "Stand by." He pulled up the atmospheric analysis. "Holy, yeah, confirmed. Thermal inversion layer between 1,100 and 1,300 meters. How did you—" "Thank you, Tower. Adjusting solution now." Mercer's mouth went dry. Thermal inversion layers were advanced sniper considerations. They bent light, affected trajectory, created mirages that could throw off even the best shooters. Most operators never bothered calculating them because the math was brutal. "Sir," Para said quietly, "that's tradecraft, real tradecraft." "I know." "Who is she?" "I don't know." But Mercer was starting to suspect. There were rumors, whispers in the special operations community about ghost units, counter-sniper teams that operated in places nobody talked about, operators with classified call signs who cleaned up problems that didn't officially exist. Phantom 7 was one of those rumors. "Vale, this is Tower. Are you ready for the shot?" Para asked. "Negative, Tower. I need 2 more minutes for wind pattern verification." "You're running out of time, Lieutenant." "The shot doesn't care about time, Tower. It cares about conditions." Someone in the observation tower laughed nervously. Mercer didn't. He was watching Vale's breathing pattern on the thermal camera. 7 seconds in, 7 seconds hold, 3 seconds out. That was a specific cadence, a combat cadence. used by exactly one training program in the entire U.S. military. "Oh my God," Mercer whispered. Chen looked at him. "What?" "I know that breathing pattern." "So?" "It's from the Advanced Special Operations Training course at Fort Bragg, but only one class per year. Selection rate is 3%. Graduation rate is 67% of selectees. So she went to sniper school. So what?" "No," Mercer said slowly. "That's not sniper school. That's counter-sniper school. That's the course that produces the shooters who hunt other snipers." The tower fell silent. "Boss," Chen said carefully, "logistics officers don't go to counter-sniper school." "No," Mercer agreed, "they don't." "So either she's lying about being logistics, or she's not lying about being logistics now, but she wasn't always logistics." The implications settled over the room like a fog. "Vale, tower, wind is shifting. You need to take the shot in the next 60 seconds or abort." "Tower, Vale, I don't abort calculated shots. Stand by for execution." Mercer grabbed the comms. "Lieutenant Vale, this is Commander Mercer. If you're not confident in this shot..." "Sir, confidence is emotional. I deal in probability. The probability is now 74%. That's acceptable for engagement." "But not certain." "Nothing in combat is certain, sir. But 74% beats 0%, which is what we have if nobody takes the shot." She had him again. Mercer released the comms button. Around the tower, operators were placing bets, money changing hands. Someone started a pool on whether she'd even hit the mountain, let alone the target. The disrespect made Mercer's stomach turn, not because he liked Vale particularly, but because he realized he was part of it. He'd been the first one to doubt her. "She can't make that shot," Mercer had said earlier. The microphones had picked it up. His own words played back in his mind, and suddenly they sounded different, smaller, meaner. "Vale, tower, you are cleared hot. Execute when ready." "Copy, tower. Cleared hot." The thermal feed showed Vale settling into final position. Her breathing slowed. 7 in, 7 hold, 3 out. The rifle steadied. The valley between her and the target was a nightmare of variables. Wind, elevation change, thermal currents, humidity gradients, even the Coriolis effect from the Earth's rotation at this distance. 3,247 meters, 2 miles and change. The kind of distance where the bullet flight time was longer than most people's attention spans. "Wind holding steady," Para reported, 12.6, left to right. "Atmospheric conditions stable. Target stationary." Vale's finger moved to the trigger. The entire observation tower leaned forward unconsciously. Mercer found himself holding his breath. Then, through the ISR feed, they saw the thermal bloom as Vale pressed the trigger. The rifle recoiled. The bullet vanished into the heat shimmer. And 7 seconds of absolute silence began. 7 seconds where everyone in that tower, from the newest private to the most experienced operators, suddenly understood what real pressure felt like. Because this wasn't just about a shot anymore. This was about whether they'd been wrong. All of them, from the very beginning. The bullet was somewhere over the valley, invisible, fighting physics and probability and the accumulated doubt of every person who'd laughed. Mercer's hands gripped the tower railing. Chen had stopped breathing. Even the betting pool fell silent. 7 seconds felt like 7 years, and Lieutenant Mara Vale, the quiet logistics officer nobody really knew, just lay behind her rifle, breathing steady, waiting for math to prove itself. The way she always did. In places that didn't exist, against targets that had no names. The ISR operator broke first. "Impact," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Direct hit, center mass." The tower erupted. "No way! Replay that. Are the sensors calibrated? Run it again!" Para's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up 3 different camera angles. The thermal signature showed it clearly. the training mannequin's chest cavity registering the impact exactly where a human heart would be. No deviation, no near miss, pure precision. Magnification on point of impact, Mercer ordered, his voice sounding strange in his own ears. The screen zoomed. The bullet had struck within a 2-inch circle of the designated center mass. At 3,247 meters, in 12.6 mile-per-hour crosswind, through a thermal inversion layer that would have thrown off 99% of shooters. Chen set his beer down slowly. That's not possible. Apparently it is, someone muttered. Mercer's mind was racing, his pulse hammered in his temples. 23 years of experience told him this didn't happen. Physics told him it shouldn't happen. But the evidence was right there on the screen, undeniable and humiliating. "Get me her file," Mercer said quietly. "The full file. Whatever's classified, I want it declassified in the next 5 minutes." "Sir, that could take 5 minutes, Para. Use my authorization code. Tell them it's operational necessity." "Yes, sir." Down on the range, Vale was already breaking down her rifle. Calm, methodical, like she just completed routine training instead of making a shot that would be analyzed in military academies for the next decade. The radio crackled. "Tower, this is British SAS lead, requesting confirmation of that shot data. My spotters are calling impossible." "Confirmed," Para responded. "Target neutralized. Single shot, no corrections needed." "Jesus Christ!" "Tower, Delta Actual, we need to debrief this immediately. That's textbook counter-sniper doctrine." "Tower, KSK Commander, with respect, who is this shooter?" The questions piled up. International observers demanding explanations. Pentagon liaisons requesting documentation. Someone from Naval Special Warfare Command calling for immediate verification. And Mercer stood there, watching Vale climb down from the ridge, feeling something he hadn't felt since he was a new officer 20 years ago. Shame. Not the public kind, the private kind. The kind that burns in your chest when you realize you've judged someone based on assumptions instead of evidence. "Sir, her file's coming through," Para said, "but there's a lot of redacted material." "Read me what isn't redacted," Para scrolled. Lieutenant Mara Jean Vale, age 31, enlisted at 18, made officer through battlefield commission in location redacted, served with unit name redacted, operated in all locations redacted, transferred to logistics support 3 months ago following reason redacted. "That's not a military file," Chen said. "That's a confession with all the crimes blacked out." Mercer's jaw clenched. "Keep going." Commendations include Navy Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart with 2 oak leaf clusters. "Stop," Mercer said. The tower went silent. "Did you say Navy Cross?" "Yes, sir. Awarded for action redacted, resulting in outcome redacted." The Navy Cross was the second highest military decoration for valor. You didn't get that for filing logistics reports. You got that for doing things that most people couldn't survive, let alone succeed at. "There's a note here," Para continued, "flagged for command review. Says Lieutenant Vale was reassigned to administrative duties pending investigation into investigation details redacted." "She's not logistics," Mercer said slowly. "She's exile." Chen looked at him. "What?" "They didn't promote her to logistics. They buried her there. Something happened, something big enough to sideline a Navy Cross recipient. But if she's that decorated, then whatever happened was either political or she pissed off someone important." Para's screen beeped. "Sir, we've got another message coming through. It's flagged urgent. From..." "Oh. From who?" "Warcom, direct from the Admiral's office." Mercer took the tablet. The message was brief and cold. "Commander Mercer, Lieutenant Vale's previous assignment is classified at TS/SCI level. Her current logistics posting is temporary administrative placement pending resolution of internal review. She is not cleared for operational duties. Any deviation from her assigned role must be reported immediately. You are directed to debrief her shot independently and submit findings within 24 hours. No discussion with other personnel regarding her background. This is not a request. The message was signed by a 3-star admiral Mercer had never heard of. "Boss?" Chen asked. Mercer handed him the tablet. Chen read it, his expression darkening. "They're protecting something. Or someone. What do we do?" Mercer looked out the tower window. Vale had reached the staging area. She was packing her rifle case with the same methodical precision she'd used for everything else. No celebration, no acknowledgement of the crowd gathering around her. "We follow orders," Mercer said. "But first, I need to talk to her. Alone." He descended the tower for the second time, but now his legs felt heavier. The walk across the range seemed longer. Every operator he passed was talking about the shot, some in disbelief, some in admiration, a few in obvious resentment. Vale saw him coming. She straightened, waiting. "Lieutenant," Mercer said, "we need to talk." "Yes, sir." "Not here. Briefing room 3. 5 minutes." "Understood, sir." Mercer turned to leave, then stopped. That was an exceptional shot, Lieutenant." "Thank you, sir. It was adequate." "Adequate?" "The wind calculation was off by .3 mils. I got lucky with the thermal layer compensation." She said it flatly, like discussing a math error on a homework assignment. Mercer had no response to that. He just walked away, his mind spinning. Briefing room 3 was a converted shipping container with a table, 4 chairs, and a single overhead light that flickered when the generator surged. Mercer waited inside, reviewing her file again on his tablet, trying to read between the redacted lines. Vale entered exactly 5 minutes later. She closed the door behind her and stood at attention. "At ease, Lieutenant. Sit down." She sat, placing her hands flat on the table. No fidgeting, no nervous energy, just stillness. Mercer studied her face. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see it. The slight scar above her left eyebrow, probably from shrapnel. The way her eyes tracked movement without moving her head. The calluses on her trigger finger that suggested thousands of rounds fired. "I'm going to ask you questions," Mercer said, "and I need honest answers. Can you do that?" "Within the limits of my clearance, sir." "Fair enough. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "Advanced marksmanship training, sir." "That's not what I asked." Vale's expression didn't change. "I'm not authorized to discuss specifics of my previous assignments, sir." "Your file says you're under investigation." "Yes, sir." "For what?" "I'm not authorized to discuss that either, sir." Mercer leaned back. "So I'm supposed to just accept that a logistics officer with a mysterious background just made one of the longest confirmed shots in military history, and I can't ask why?" "You can ask, sir. I just can't answer." "This is ridiculous." "I agree, sir." The honesty surprised him. Vale's face softened slightly, the first real expression he'd seen from her all day. "Sir, if I could explain, I would. But I signed documents that would put me in Leavenworth if I violate them. And I've already lost enough." "Lost what?" Vale looked away. For just a moment, vulnerability flashed across her face. "My team, my mission, my purpose, everything that mattered." The pain in her voice was real, raw. This wasn't someone playing games or hiding behind bureaucracy. This was someone genuinely trapped. Mercer's approach shifted. "Off the record." "Sir?" "What I'm about to ask is off the record. The door is closed, no recording devices, just 2 professionals talking. Can we do that?" Vale studied him carefully. "Yes, sir." "Why did you take that shot today?" "Because someone needed to." "That's not an answer." "Yes, sir, it is." Vale's voice was steady now, stronger. "You stood in that tower and decided I couldn't make the shot, not because of the math, not because of the conditions, but because of who I appeared to be. A logistics officer, A woman. Someone transferred from a mysterious posting. You made assumptions. Mercer felt his face heat. Lieutenant, I'm not criticizing, sir. I'm explaining. Everyone makes assumptions. It's human nature. But in combat, assumptions kill people. So when I saw that shot, a shot I knew I could make, and nobody was taking it because they assumed it was impossible, I had to prove the assumption wrong. Not for ego, for principle. You risked your career to make a point? I risked embarrassment, sir. My career was already over the moment I got reassigned to logistics. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. Mercer set down his tablet. What happened to you, Vale? I reported corruption, sir. Procurement fraud. Contracts going to companies owned by family members of senior officers. Equipment that didn't meet spec being sold to units deploying into combat. I had evidence. I submitted it through proper channels. And then I got reassigned. My team got disbanded, and the investigation disappeared into a filing cabinet somewhere. She delivered it without emotion, but Mercer could hear the devastation underneath. So they buried you. They buried me, sir. And that shot today was me reminding myself that I still have value, even if nobody else believes it. The room fell silent. Mercer had commanded hundreds of people over his career. He'd seen courage in firefights, integrity under pressure, sacrifice in the face of death. But this was different. This was someone fighting a battle that didn't have enemy combatants or clear objectives. This was someone fighting against erasure. For what it's worth, Mercer said quietly, I was wrong about you. Yes, sir, you were. No forgiveness in her tone, no acceptance of his apology, just fact. But I'm going to fix it, Mercer continued. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to figure out what happened to you and why. A sharp knock interrupted him. The door opened without permission. A man in civilian clothes stood there, mid-50s, gray hair, expensive suit that looked wrong in a military environment. Commander Mercer, the man said, we need to talk. Who the hell are you? George Brennan, Defense Intelligence Agency. I'm here about Lieutenant Vale. Vale's entire body tensed. Mercer saw her hands flatten harder against the table, knuckles white. This is a closed debrief, Mercer said. Not anymore. Brennan stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Lieutenant Vale, you violated the terms of your administrative reassignment by engaging in operational activities. I'm here to escort you back to... She took one training shot, Mercer interrupted, during an approved exercise. She engaged in sniper operations, Commander. That's explicitly forbidden under the conditions of her transfer. That's bullshit, Brennan smiled coldly. That's policy. Lieutenant, gather your equipment. You're coming with me. Vale stood slowly. Where? That's classified. Like hell, Mercer said, standing as well. She's assigned to my task unit. You can't just... Actually, I can. Lieutenant Vale is currently under DIA oversight. Her assignment to your unit is administrative convenience only. She has no operational authority. She just made a shot that your entire agency couldn't make. That's not relevant. It's completely relevant. Brennan's smile disappeared. Commander, I'm going to give you some advice. Lieutenant Vale is involved in matters above your pay grade and beyond your clearance level. The best thing you can do for your career is step aside and let me do my job. Your job is covering up fraud. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Brennan's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You heard me. Vale reported corruption. Someone important got embarrassed. Now you're here to make sure she stays quiet. That's a serious accusation, Commander. Then deny it. Brennan looked at Vale. Did you discuss classified information with Commander Mercer? No, sir, Vale said quietly. Did you reveal details of your investigation? Within the limits of unclassified discussion, sir. That's a violation. Actually, it's not, Mercer said. I asked. She answered in general terms. Nothing classified, nothing specific. If you want to discipline someone, start with me. Brennan studied them both. Mercer could see the calculation happening, weighing options, measuring consequences, deciding how much trouble this was worth. Lieutenant Vale, wait outside, Brennan finally said. Vale looked at Mercer. He nodded slightly. She left, closing the door behind her. Brennan waited until her footsteps faded. Then he leaned against the table, his demeanor shifting from official to pragmatic. Commander, you seem like a smart man, so let me explain reality to you. Lieutenant Vale is radioactive. She stuck her nose in business that wasn't hers, made enemies of people who don't forget, and now she's paying the price. That's how this works. That's not how it should work. Should and does are two different things. Now you can play hero if you want. You can file reports, request investigations, make noise. And in 6 months, you'll find yourself reassigned to a recruiting office in Nebraska, while Vale ends up processing discharge paperwork in some basement at the Pentagon. Or you can let this go, finish your exercise, and everyone moves on with their careers intact. Mercer's hands clenched. You're asking me to ignore corruption. I'm asking you to be practical. I took an oath. So did I. Oaths are complicated when real politics get involved. Not mine. Brennan sighed. Look, I get it. She made an impressive shot. She's got a compelling story. But you don't know the whole picture. The people she accused were guilty, were powerful, and power beats evidence every time. That's not fair, but it's true. Mercer stepped closer. So what happens to her? She serves out her administrative term, eventually takes a medical discharge or resigns, gets a civilian job somewhere, lives a normal life. It's not ideal, but it's survivable. While the criminals she exposed keep their jobs, while the system keeps functioning, sometimes that's more important than individual justice. I don't accept that. You don't have to accept it, Commander. You just have to live in it. Brennan moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, that shot she made today, it's going to get attention, a lot of attention. International observers saw it. Pentagon brass are already asking questions. If you're smart, you'll bury the footage and forget it happened. Because if it becomes public knowledge that a supposedly disgraced officer made one of the greatest shots in military history, people are going to start wondering why she was disgraced in the first place. And those questions lead to answers that make people like me very uncomfortable. Good. No, Commander, not good. Because when people like me get uncomfortable, we make problems disappear. And I'd hate for Vale's problems to get worse. It wasn't subtle. It was barely disguised. It was a direct threat. Are you threatening a Navy officer? Mercer asked quietly. I'm explaining consequences. There's a difference. Brennan opened the door. Lieutenant Vale has 48 hours to complete her assigned duties here. After that, she's coming with me. Enjoy the rest of your exercise, Commander. He left. Mercer stood alone in the briefing room, rage and frustration warring in his chest. Outside, he found Vale waiting by the equipment staging area. She was staring across the valley toward the ridge where she'd taken the shot. You heard? Mercer asked. Most of it, sir. The walls are thin. I'm sorry. Don't be, sir. You tried. That's more than most people would do. It's not enough. Vale turned to face him. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead. When you said I couldn't make that shot, in front of everyone, did you mean it? Mercer wanted to lie, wanted to soften it, but she deserved truth. Yes, he said. I meant it. I looked at you and saw logistics, saw a woman, saw someone I didn't know, and I assumed you weren't capable. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I'm sorry. Vale nodded slowly. Thank you for the honesty, sir. Does it help? A little, because now I know you're someone who can learn. Most people can't. She picked up her rifle case. I should get back to my quarters. Apparently, I only have 48 hours left of useful existence. Vale, she stopped. That shot you made, that's going to be studied, analyzed, taught, long after everyone here forgets the politics and the corruption and the bullshit. Someone is going to look at that data and learn something that saves a life. That matters. For the first time all day, Vale smiled. Just slightly, just enough. Math always matters, sir, even when people don't. She walked away. Mercer watched her go, his mind already racing through options. Brennan thought he could threaten this into silence. But Brennan didn't understand what he'd just done. He'd given Mercer a mission, and Mercer didn't fail missions. Mercer didn't go back to the tower. He went to the communications tent. The comms specialist, a young petty officer named Rodriguez, looked up from his console. Sir, I need secure satellite uplink, priority channel, and I need you to forget I was here. Rodriguez hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. Then he nodded. Yes, sir. Channel 7 is encrypted. You've got 15 minutes before the rotation check. Good man. Mercer took the headset and moved to the corner terminal. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up a contact list he rarely used. Names he'd collected over 23 years. People who owed him favors. People who valued integrity over politics. The first call went to Captain Sarah Mitchell at Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Mercer, she answered, her voice sharp. This better be good. I'm in the middle of... I need you to pull a file, quietly. Mitchell paused. How quietly? Invisible quietly. Lieutenant Mara Vale, currently assigned to my task unit, previously assigned to something classified that got her Navy Cross and a one-way ticket to logistics hell. Jesus, Hawk, you're asking me to dig into classified personnel actions? I'm asking you to verify whether a corruption investigation was buried, and if so, by whom? Another pause, longer this time. You're serious. Dead serious. What's your evidence? A 3,000-meter shot that should be impossible, a DIA suit threatening me in my own briefing room, and a decorated officer being erased because she did her job. Mitchell exhaled slowly. Give me 6 hours. I'll call you back on this channel. And Hawk? Yeah? If this goes sideways, I'm burning your number. Fair enough. The line clicked dead. Mercer made 3 more calls, each one careful, each one coded in the language of people who understood that some truths require protection. By the time he finished, his shirt was soaked with sweat, despite the air conditioning. Rodriguez caught his eye and tapped his watch. Time was up. Thanks, Rodriguez. Sir, I logged you as running comms diagnostics. That gives you cover for about 48 hours. Why are you helping me? Rodriguez looked down at his console. My sister's in the Army. Logistics. She reported sexual harassment by her CO. Got reassigned to inventory management in Kuwait. Guy who harassed her got promoted. So yeah, I help when I can. Mercer gripped the young man's shoulder. Your sister's got good instincts. So do you. He left the tent and nearly walked straight into Chen. Boss, we need to talk. Not here. Where? Motor pool, 5 minutes. The motor pool was loud with generator noise and vehicle maintenance, perfect for conversations that needed to disappear into ambient sound. Chen leaned against a Humvee. The operators are talking. About? Vale's shot. Someone leaked the footage to the international observers. British SAS wants her for cross-training. Germans are calling it the shot of the decade. Even the Australians, and those guys never admit anyone's better than them, are asking for her bio. That's good. No, boss, that's complicated. Because now everyone wants to know who she is. And when they dig, they're going to find a whole lot of redacted nothing, which makes people ask more questions. Mercer felt a grim smile cross his face. Exactly. Chen stared at him. You did this on purpose. I cleared her for the shot. You knew it would blow up. I knew she could make it. The rest is just consequence. Brennan's going to be pissed. Brennan can get in line. Chen shook his head slowly. Boss, what are you doing? My job. Your job is running this task unit, not starting wars with DIA. My job is protecting my people. Vale's my people now. She's been here one day. Don't care. She took a shot nobody else would take. She proved something everyone said was impossible. And now she's getting punished for it. That stops. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened. What do you need? Access to the exercise database, specifically procurement records for the equipment we're using. Why? Because if Vale exposed corruption in procurement, I want to know if any of that corruption is connected to this exercise. If it is, we've got leverage. Boss, that's dangerous, I know, but so is letting them bury a decorated officer because she told the truth. Chen nodded slowly. I'll get you access, but it'll take a few hours. The database has triple authentication. I've got time. Brennan gave Vale 48 hours. That gives me 48 hours to build a case. And if you can't, then at least I'll know I tried. Chen left. Mercer stood alone in the motor pool, the enormity of what he'd started settling over him like a weight. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mercer. Commander, this is Colonel David Reeves. I'm calling from Naval Special Warfare Command. Mercer's blood went cold. Yes, sir. I'm told you had an interesting day at the range. Sir, I can explain. Don't. I've seen the footage. Every staff officer in the Pentagon has seen the footage. That shot was remarkable. The shooter even more so. Mercer waited. There was a but coming. But I'm also told you had a visit from DIA and that you're making inquiries about classified personnel matters. Sir, let me finish, Commander. I'm not calling to reprimand you. I'm calling to warn you. Lieutenant Vale's situation is more complicated than you know. The investigation she initiated didn't just expose procurement fraud. It exposed a network. Contracts worth hundreds of millions. Companies with connections to sitting members of Congress. People who don't take exposure lightly. Mercer's mouth went dry. How much of this do you know, sir? Enough to know that Vale did the right thing and got crucified for it. Enough to know that several of us at Warcom tried to protect her and got overruled. Enough to know that if you keep pushing, you're going to make enemies that will end your career. With respect, sir, my career isn't the priority right now. Reeves laughed, but there was no humor in it. I hoped you'd say that. Listen carefully, Mercer. You've got 48 hours before DIA pulls Vale out. In that time, you need to do two things. First, document everything. Every conversation with Brennan, every threat, every attempt to silence inquiry. Second, you need to make noise, loud noise. Get international attention on Vale. Make her so visible that disappearing her becomes politically impossible. How do I do that, sir? You're running a multinational exercise with Pentagon observers and foreign military attachés. You have the perfect stage. Use it. Sir, if I do this, you'll burn bridges, you'll make enemies, you might lose your command. But you'll also do something that matters. And sometimes, Commander, that's all we get. The line went dead. Mercer stood there, phone in hand, heart pounding. Behind him, a voice said, "He's right, you know." Mercer spun. Vale stood 20 feet away. She'd approached silently, ghost-like. "How long have you been there?" Mercer asked. "Long enough. Sir, you need to stop this." "Not happening." "You don't understand what you're risking." "I understand perfectly." Vale walked closer. Her eyes were hard, guarded. "Commander, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not worth destroying your career over. That's not your call to make. It's my life. And it's my command, my responsibility, my choice." Vale's jaw tightened. "Why? You didn't even know I existed yesterday. Why throw away everything for someone you just met?" Mercer met her gaze steadily. "Because 23 years ago, I was a brand new lieutenant. Second day on my first SEAL team. I made a mistake during a training exercise. Simple mistake, but in combat it would have gotten people killed. My platoon chief pulled me aside and ripped into me. But then he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "The measure of a unit isn't how we treat the best operator. It's how we treat the one who's struggling. Because someday, you'll be the one who needs someone to have your back, and you'll remember who stood up when it mattered." Vale's expression softened slightly. "You're not struggling," Mercer continued. "You're being persecuted, and if I stand by and let that happen because it's politically convenient, then I don't deserve this uniform. None of us do. They'll destroy you. Maybe, but I've been doing this long enough to know that the things that haunt you aren't the risks you take. They're the moments you stay silent when you should have spoken up. I've got enough ghosts, Vale. I don't need another one." Vale looked away. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "The corruption wasn't just procurement, sir." "What do you mean?" "It was equipment. Body armor that didn't meet ballistic standards. Communications gear that failed in combat environments. Medical supplies that were expired before they were shipped. All of it going to forward operating bases. All of it purchased from companies owned by a group called Sentinel Defense Solutions. I've never heard of them. Most people haven't. They're a shell company. But if you trace the ownership through enough layers, you find names. Retired generals, former Pentagon officials, 2 sitting senators. They were using procurement contracts to funnel money and providing substandard equipment that was getting people killed. Mercer felt sick. How many casualties? I documented 17 deaths directly attributable to equipment failure, probably more that I couldn't prove. When I submitted my report, it disappeared. When I pushed harder, I got reassigned. When I tried going to the Inspector General, suddenly my previous missions got classified at levels I couldn't access. They erased my credibility retroactively. That's why your file is all redacted. That's why I don't officially exist anymore, sir. I'm a ghost. A mistake they're trying to forget." Mercer's hands clenched. "Who was the officer who buried your report?" Vale hesitated, then quietly, "Rear Admiral Thomas Keating." The name hit Mercer like a punch. Admiral Keating was legendary. 35 years of service, 3 combat commands. Currently serving as Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. The man was untouchable. "Jesus Christ," Mercer whispered. "Now you understand, sir. This isn't just corruption. It's institutional protection. They'll bury both of us without blinking. Maybe, or maybe we make enough noise that they can't." Vale shook her head. "Sir." Mercer's phone buzzed again. He checked it. Message from Chen. "Got the database access. You need to see this. Now." "Come with me," Mercer said to Vale. They found Chen in a secure workstation trailer. His face was pale. "Boss, you're not going to believe this." "Try me." Chen pulled up spreadsheets, procurement records, equipment manifests. "The body armor we're using for this exercise, the vehicles, the communications gear, half of it came through Sentinel Defense Solutions." Mercer felt the room tilt. "What?" "This exercise, the one with international observers and Pentagon brass, is being supplied by the same company Vale exposed. They're using it as a showcase, probably to secure more contracts." Vale stepped forward, studying the screen. "Check the helmet-mounted cameras, the ones we're using for after-action review." Chen scrolled, found the contract. His eyes widened. "Holy shit." "What?" Mercer demanded. "The cameras aren't just recording, they're transmitting. Real-time encrypted feeds to, I don't know where. The contract doesn't specify the end user." "Someone's watching this exercise," Vale said quietly. "Not just reviewing footage, watching live. Probably selling the feed to private contractors or foreign entities. Operational tactics, response patterns, everything." "That's espionage," Chen said. "That's treason," Mercer corrected. The 3 of them stood in silence, the weight of discovery crushing. "We need to shut this down," Chen said. "Right now. Cancel the exercise. Confiscate the equipment." "We can't," Mercer said. "The moment we move, Keating and his network will know we're onto them. They'll destroy evidence, burn witnesses. Vale will disappear, and we'll have nothing. So what do we do? Mercer looked at Vale. How good are you with technical surveillance? I did 2 years with SIGINT operations before switching to counter-sniper work. Why? Because we're going to trace those camera feeds, find out who's receiving them, document everything, and then we're going to blow this wide open in front of every international observer and Pentagon official on this range. Vale's eyes widened. That's insane. That's necessary. Sir, if you accuse a flag officer of treason in front of foreign militaries, you'll start an international incident. Good. Incidents require investigations. Investigations require transparency. Transparency is exactly what Keating's been avoiding. Chen looked between them. Boss, this is career suicide. For all of us. Probably. Just probably? There's a chance we're all heroes instead. About 10%. Those are terrible odds. Better than zero. Vale moved to the computer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, running trace programs and decryption protocols. I can track the feeds, but I'll need about 6 hours and Chen's help to bypass the encryption. You've got 4 hours, Mercer said. At 2200, we're calling an emergency commander's briefing. Every international observer, every Pentagon liaison, everyone who matters, and we're going to present evidence of systemic corruption and espionage in front of an audience that can't be silenced. Sir, Brennan will intervene, Vale said. Let him. In front of British SAS and German KSK, in front of Pentagon generals, he'll either have to explain why he's protecting traitors, or he'll have to step back. Either way, we win. Chen shook his head slowly. This is the craziest thing I've ever been part of, and I jumped out of a helicopter into a Taliban compound once. Good times, Mercer said. Get to work, both of you. I need to make some calls. He left them working and stepped outside. The desert evening was cooling, stars beginning to appear. His phone rang. Mitchell. Talk to me, Sarah. Hawk, I found something. Vale's corruption report? It wasn't buried. It was stolen. Someone accessed the NCIS database and deleted every copy. Professional job. But they missed one thing. What? Vale had sent a copy to a civilian oversight committee. Congressional staffer named Jennifer Walsh. She kept it as an insurance policy. I tracked her down. She still has it. All of it. Names, dates, dollar amounts, Keating's signature on approval documents. Everything. Can we get it? Already done. I'm encrypting it and sending it to your secure email right now. Hawk, this is explosive. If this goes public, it's going public tonight, in front of 40 international military observers. Mitchell was silent for a long beat. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. Then I'm with you. I'll prep a full NCIS brief as supporting documentation. But Hawk? Yeah? Watch your back. People who threaten flag officers tend to have accidents. I'll be careful. He hung up and stood there, looking up at the stars, thinking about the choice he'd made. 23 years of service, everything he'd built, his reputation, his command, his future, all of it on the line for someone he'd met yesterday, someone he'd doubted publicly, someone he'd been wrong about in every way that mattered. But that was the thing about doing the right thing. It didn't care about convenience or timing or politics. It just was. Behind him, the door opened. Vale stepped out. Sir, we've traced the feeds. You need to see who's receiving them. Who? Vale's face was grim. A private military contractor called Vanguard Strategic Solutions. They're based in Virginia, and according to their corporate filing, their CEO is retired Admiral Thomas Keating. Mercer felt something cold settle in his chest. He's not just protecting corruption, Vale said quietly. He's running it, using his position to steal military intelligence and sell it to his own company. Then using that intelligence to underbid competitors on contracts because he knows exactly what the military needs before they request it. That's brilliant, Mercer said, and evil. That's why 17 soldiers died, sir. Because Keating's company provided the cheapest bid. Because he knew he could cut corners on quality and still win. Because he had inside information. The deaths weren't collateral damage. They were the business model. Mercer looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman had been carrying this knowledge for months. Fighting alone. Being silenced. Watching her career burn. And she'd made that shot this morning anyway. Not for recognition. Not for revenge. But because it was the right thing to do. Vale, he said. Sir, that shot you made. I'm starting to understand it wasn't just about proving people wrong. It was about proving you still existed, still mattered, still had value. Vale's eyes glistened slightly. Yes, sir. You were wrong about one thing, though. What's that? You always mattered. The system just forgot how to see it, but I see it now. And in about 3 hours, everyone else is going to see it too. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Now come on, Mercer said. We've got a briefing to prepare and a flag officer to destroy. They walked back inside together, two people who'd been strangers yesterday, now bound by something stronger than rank or protocol. The mission, the real one, not the one they'd been ordered to complete, but the one that actually mattered. 2100 hours, 1 hour before the briefing. Chen burst into the workstation trailer, his face flushed. We've got a problem. Mercer looked up from the documents Mitchell had sent. What now? Brennan just called a security lockdown. He's claiming potential foreign intelligence compromise. Nobody enters or leaves the command area without DIA clearance. Vale's fingers froze on the keyboard. He knows. How? Mercer demanded. Doesn't matter how, Chen said. What matters is he's shutting us down before we can get to the briefing. Mercer checked his watch. The commander's briefing was scheduled for 2200 in the main operations center. Every international observer would be there. Every Pentagon liaison. Everyone who mattered. But if Brennan had locked down access, they were dead in the water. The briefing is still happening, Mercer said. I confirmed with Warcom an hour ago. Multiple flag officers are attending remotely. Brennan can't cancel it without exposing himself. He doesn't need to cancel it, Vale said quietly. He just needs to keep us away from it. Then we break the lockdown. Chen stared at him. Boss, that's necessary. Where's the security perimeter? Main gate, vehicle checkpoint, guard posts at every access road. Brennan brought in 4 DIA security contractors. These guys aren't regular military, they're professionals. Vale stood up. How many ways into the operations center? 3 entrances, all guarded now. Service tunnels? Chen blinked. What? Every major command facility has service tunnels for utilities and communications. Where are they? I don't know. I've never needed... I know, Mercer said suddenly. He pulled out the facility map he'd been given during initial briefing, spread it across the table, his finger traced lines. Here and here, maintenance access from the generator complex, runs underground directly beneath the operations center. That's a quarter mile through pitch-black tunnels that might be locked. Better than trying to talk our way past DIA contractors who've been ordered to stop us. Vale grabbed her gear bag. How much time do we have? 53 minutes, Mercer said. Then we move, now. They left through the back exit of the trailer. The night air was cold, the temperature having dropped 30 degrees since sunset. Mercer could see guard posts in the distance, flashlight beams sweeping methodically. Stay low, he whispered. Single file. Vale, you're on point. She moved like smoke. Mercer had commanded SEALs for years, had seen the best operators in the world move through hostile territory. But Vale was something else entirely. She read terrain instinctively, choosing paths that provided maximum concealment with minimal exposure. They reached the generator complex without incident. The door was locked. Chen pulled out a multi-tool. I can pick this, but it'll take... Vale already had the door open. She held up a key card. Where did you get that? Mercer asked. Lifted it from the maintenance supervisor this afternoon. Old habit. Remind me never to keep secrets around you. They slipped inside. The generator noise was deafening. Vale found the tunnel access behind a bank of fuel tanks. The hatch was rusty, but opened with effort. Down we go, Mercer said. The tunnel was exactly as advertised, pitch black, cramped, and smelling of oil and stale air. They used phone flashlights to navigate, moving as quickly as the confined space allowed. Halfway through, Vale stopped suddenly. What? Mercer whispered. Listen. Behind them, footsteps echoed, multiple sets, moving fast. They found our entry point, Chen hissed. Keep moving, Mercer ordered. Double time. They ran. The tunnel seemed endless. Behind them, the footsteps got closer. Flashlight beams appeared in the darkness. This way, Vale said, pulling them down a side passage. That's not on the map, Chen protested. Trust me. They followed her through a maze of intersecting tunnels. The pursuers' voices echoed, confused, spreading out to search. Vale led them to a vertical shaft with a ladder. Up! Now! Mercer climbed first. 20 feet of rusted metal ladder, his hands slipping on the corroded rungs. At the top, another hatch. He pushed hard. It gave way suddenly, spilling him into a storage room filled with communications equipment. Vale and Chen climbed up behind him. They sealed the hatch just as footsteps approached in the tunnel below. Where are we? Mercer asked. Vale checked the equipment labels. Communications vault, 2 levels below the operations center. How do you know this facility so well? I don't. I'm reading the signs and making educated guesses. That was one hell of a guess. Math applies to navigation too, sir. Chen checked his watch. 37 minutes. They found stairs, climbed carefully. On the upper level, voices carried from the main corridor. DIA contractors were posted at every intersection. We're trapped, Chen said. No, Vale said. We're motivated. She opened her gear bag and pulled out 3 sets of maintenance coveralls. I grabbed these from the storage room. Put them on. You planned this? Mercer asked. I planned for variables, sir. That's different. They changed quickly. Vale smudged dirt on their faces, messed their hair. When she was done, they looked like maintenance techs who'd been working underground for hours. Walk like you belong, Vale said, and carry something. People ignore workers carrying things. She handed Chen a toolbox, gave Mercer a clipboard, took a radio for herself. They stepped into the corridor. 2 DIA contractors stood 30 feet away, watching everyone who passed. Just walk, Vale murmured. They moved toward the guards. Mercer's heart hammered. His hand wanted to drift toward his sidearm. Identification, one contractor said as they approached. Vale kept walking, speaking into her radio. Tower, this is Maintenance 7. The fiber trunk is still down. We need access to the main switch and ops. Yes, I understand there's a lockdown. That's why the fiber is down. Someone cut the wrong cable during security sweep. She walked past the contractors like they weren't even there. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. Mercer followed her lead, holding up the clipboard. You guys cut the communications trunk during lockdown. Now we've got brass screaming about dead video feeds. You want to explain to the Admiral why the briefing has no comms? The contractor hesitated, then waved them through. Make it fast. They rounded the corner. Chen let out a breath. Holy hell. Keep moving, Vale said. The operations center was ahead. Through the windows, Mercer could see people gathering. International observers in various uniforms, Pentagon officials, video screens showing remote attendees. And standing near the entrance, arms crossed, looking like he owned the world, Brennan. Side door, Vale said immediately. They diverted to a service entrance. The door was locked, but Vale had it open in seconds. They slipped inside just as Brennan turned their direction. The operations center was massive, tiered seating, multiple display screens, a central podium with microphone. About 40 people already seated, conversation buzzing. Mercer spotted the British SAS commander, the German KSK colonel, representatives from Australia, France, Canada, Pentagon liaisons with stars on their shoulders. And on the main screen, Admiral Thomas Keating himself, attending remotely from Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. 28 minutes, Chen whispered. They needed to wait. Mercer had learned long ago that timing was everything. Present too early, and Brennan could have them removed before the briefing officially started. Present too late, and they'd lose the element of surprise. They hid in an equipment alcove, watching the room fill. Brennan entered. He scanned the crowd, clearly looking for someone. When he didn't find who he wanted, his jaw tightened. He's looking for us, Chen said. Let him look, Mercer replied. At 21:55, the ranking officer present, a two-star general named Matthews, called the room to order. Gentlemen and ladies, we're here for the post-exercise commander's debrief. We've had an exceptional day of joint operations, and I understand we have some remarkable events to discuss. Admiral Keating will be providing strategic overview via secure video. Admiral? Keating's face filled the screen. Late 50s, silver hair, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite, the kind of face that inspired confidence, that made people believe. Thank you, General Matthews. Today's exercise demonstrated exactly why international cooperation is essential for modern warfare. The integration we've achieved. Admiral Keating, Mercer said, stepping out of the alcove, we need to discuss procurement irregularities. The room went silent. Every head turned. Brennan moved immediately toward Mercer. Commander, you're not authorized to be here. Security, remove. I'm the task unit commander for this exercise, Mercer said, his voice carrying. I have every right to be here, and every obligation to report security compromises. General Matthews stood. Commander Mercer, what's the meaning of this? Sir, I have evidence of systematic corruption in the procurement chain for this exercise, evidence of espionage, and evidence that Admiral Keating is directly involved in both. The room exploded. This is outrageous, Keating's voice boomed from the speakers. Security, remove him now, Brennan ordered. But Vale had moved to the podium controls. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Suddenly, the main displays showed procurement documents, contract signatures, financial transfers. What you're seeing, Vale said, her voice calm and clear, is a network of shell companies funneling military contracts to Vanguard Strategic Solutions, a company owned by Admiral Keating. He's been using his position to steal military intelligence, sell it to his private company, and provide substandard equipment that has directly resulted in combat casualties. This is classified information, Brennan shouted. You're violating. The classification was illegal, Mercer said, used to bury evidence of criminal activity. We have documentation from NCIS confirming the corruption investigation was systematically destroyed. We have testimony from congressional staffers. And we have proof that the equipment being used in this exercise contains surveillance devices transmitting real-time intelligence to Admiral Keating's private company. The British SAS commander stood. Is this true? Our tactical procedures are being sold? Your tactics, your formations, your communications protocols, Vale said. Everything captured by helmet cameras that were never disclosed as surveillance devices. All transmitted to a private contractor who can sell that intelligence to anyone willing to pay. The room erupted in chaos. International observers were on their feet, shouting questions. Pentagon officials were on phones. General Matthews was calling for order. And on the screen, Admiral Keating's face had gone from confident to ashen. This is a fabrication, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. A disgruntled officer making baseless accusations. Lieutenant Vale, the German colonel said, standing. I recognize that name. You're the sniper who made the 3,000-meter shot this morning. Yes, sir. And you're the officer I was told was merely a logistics transfer with no operational background. That's correct, sir. Yet you made one of the longest confirmed shots in military history, using doctrine that suggests extensive counter-sniper training. And now you're presenting evidence of corruption involving the same officer who authorized your reassignment to logistics. That seems like more than coincidence. Vale met his eyes steadily. Lieutenant Vale was the primary investigator who exposed this network. She submitted her findings through proper channels. Those findings were buried. She was reassigned to silence her. Today's shot wasn't about marksmanship, sir. It was about proving she still existed, still had value, still deserved to be heard. The room went quiet. The British commander spoke. Admiral Keating, I'm going to ask you a direct question. Did you authorize the burial of a corruption investigation? I authorized a reassignment based on operational needs. That's not what I asked. Keating's face flushed. This briefing is over. General Matthews, I'm ordering you to... Admiral, Matthews interrupted, his voice cold. You don't give me orders, and this briefing continues until I say otherwise. Chen had moved to another terminal. Sirs, I can trace the surveillance feeds in real time. If anyone wants confirmation, I can show you exactly where this intelligence is being transmitted right now. Do it, the Australian representative said. Chen's fingers flew. On the displays, network diagrams appeared, data streams, IP addresses, and at the end of every stream, Vanguard Strategic Solutions servers in Virginia. That's our live exercise feed, the French observer said slowly, from 10 minutes ago. Still transmitting, Chen confirmed, has been for the last 6 days. Brennan made one last attempt. This is a DIA matter. I'm ordering this facility cleared of... Why? Vale asked quietly. Everyone looked at her. Why is DIA protecting this? She continued. What's the benefit to American intelligence in allowing a flag officer to sell Allied military secrets? Unless DIA isn't protecting American interests. Unless they're protecting specific individuals who benefit from this corruption. She turned to Brennan. How much is Keating paying you? Or is it equity? Do you own stock in Vanguard? Brennan's face went white. Check his financial disclosures, Vale said to General Matthews. You'll find he purchased significant stock in a venture capital firm that's the majority investor in Vanguard. He's been protecting Keating because they're partners. You can't prove that, Brennan said, but his voice shook. I don't have to prove it, Vale said. The investigators who follow up on this briefing will prove it. I just had to say it out loud, in front of witnesses who can't be silenced, in front of allies whose trust has been violated, in front of people who actually care about integrity. General Matthews picked up a phone. Get me the Inspector General and the FBI and NCIS. I want investigators on site within the hour. This is a mistake, Keating said from the screen. You destroyed it, Matthews cut him off. The moment you decided your bank account mattered more than the lives of the people serving under your command. Security, disconnect Admiral Keating's feed. The screen went black. Matthews turned to Mercer. Commander, I assume you have documentation for everything you presented? Yes, sir. NCIS is forwarding a complete case file. We also have congressional testimony and financial records. And you were willing to risk your career to present this? Sir, 17 soldiers died because of substandard equipment provided through this corruption network. My career seems like a small price to pay for justice. Matthews studied him for a long moment. Then he looked at Vale. Lieutenant, that shot you made this morning, I've read the after-action report. 3,247 meters in 12-mile-per-hour crosswind through thermal distortion. That's not just skill, that's extraordinary capability. Thank you, sir. Why were you reassigned to logistics? Because I reported corruption, sir, and the corrupt don't appreciate being exposed. Well, Lieutenant, consider yourself unreassigned, effective immediately. I'm recommending you for the Defense Meritorious Service Medal for your investigation work, and I'm personally requesting your reinstatement to operational status." Vale's eyes widened. For the first time since Mercer had met her, emotion cracked through her professional facade. "Sir, That's an order, Lieutenant. We need people who do the right thing, even when it costs them everything. Apparently, we don't have enough of those." The British commander stood. "General, on behalf of the international observers, I want to thank Commander Mercer and Lieutenant Vale for their integrity. This situation could have resulted in significant intelligence compromise for our forces. We're grateful it was exposed." Others echoed the sentiment. The Germans, the Australians, the French. Brennan had slipped toward the door. "Not so fast," Chen said. "Security, that man is a person of interest in a federal investigation." Two military police officers blocked Brennan's exit. "You can't do this," Brennan said. "I have immunity." "Not anymore," Matthews said, "and something tells me the FBI is going to be very interested in your financial arrangements." Brennan's face crumpled. In seconds, he went from arrogant authority figure to desperate criminal. "It wasn't my idea. Keating approached me. He said it was just consulting, that we were helping American businesses compete. I didn't know about the casualties. I swear I didn't know." "Save it for the investigators," Matthews said coldly. The military police led Brennan away. The room began to empty, officers heading to secure communications to report the situation to their respective commands. Vale stood alone near the podium, looking stunned. Mercer approached her. "You okay?" "I don't know, sir. 6 months ago I was leading counter-sniper operations. Then I was processing supply requisitions. Now What exactly am I?" "You're someone who just changed everything," Mercer said. "For 17 families who lost loved ones to defective equipment. For thousands of soldiers who might have been the next casualties. For every allied nation whose trust was being violated. You did that." "We did that, sir. You risked everything because it was right, and because you showed me what courage actually looks like. That shot this morning, I thought it was about ego, about proving people wrong. But it wasn't. It was about refusing to be erased, about maintaining your identity when everyone was trying to take it away. That's a different kind of courage, the hardest kind." Vale's eyes glistened. "Thank you, sir." Chen joined them. "Well, that was insane, in the best possible way. Also, we're probably all getting investigated for the next 6 months." "Worth it," Mercer said. "Agreed." General Matthews approached. "Commander Mercer, I'm extending this exercise by 72 hours. I want a full operational security review, and I want Lieutenant Vale conducting it. She clearly has skills we've been wasting." "Yes, sir," Matthews paused. "Off the record, what you did tonight took guts. You faced down a flag officer, risked your career, and exposed corruption that goes to the highest levels. That's the kind of leadership we need. Don't lose it." "I'll do my best, sir." After Matthews left, the three of them stood in the empty operations center, the adrenaline finally fading. "So what happens now?" Chen asked. "Now?" Mercer smiled. "Now we get back to work. We've got an exercise to finish, and apparently we're doing it with equipment that actually works." Vale laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was surprising and genuine. "Sir, can I ask you something?" she said. "Go ahead. When you said I couldn't make that shot this morning, did part of you hope you were wrong?" Mercer considered the question. "Honestly, no. I was certain I was right, which makes being wrong so much better, because it means I learned something about assumptions, about capability, about what real excellence looks like when it's not wrapped in the package we expect." "That's a good answer, sir." "I'm learning from a good teacher, Lieutenant." They walked out together into the night air. Above them, stars filled the desert sky. Somewhere, investigators were already mobilizing. Evidence was being secured. Careers were ending. But here, in this moment, 3 people who'd been strangers 48 hours ago stood together, having done something that mattered. You know what the funny thing is? Chen said. What? Mercer asked. That shot, the 3,000-meter shot. That's what everyone's going to remember. Not the corruption investigation, not the admiral getting arrested, just that impossible shot. That's the story that'll get told. Vale shook her head. That's okay. Stories are just stories. What matters is the outcome. 17 families might get answers now. Future soldiers might get equipment that actually protects them. Allied nations might trust us again. That's not a story, that's measurable impact. Math, Mercer said. Always math, sir. They stood there a moment longer, breathing the cold night air, feeling the weight of what they'd done and the uncertainty of what came next. Then Mercer's phone buzzed. A message from Colonel Reeves at Warcom. Well done, Commander. The Admiral sends his regards. Also, you're probably going to be investigated by about 6 different agencies. Lawyer up. Worth it, though. Some bridges are worth burning. Mercer showed the message to Vale and Chen. Lawyer up, Chen read. That's encouraging. Could be worse, Vale said. How? We could have stayed silent, let the corruption continue, let more soldiers die. At least this way we sleep well. She was right. That was the thing about integrity. It didn't promise easy outcomes. It just promised you could live with yourself afterward. And sometimes that was enough. 3 hours later, Mercer sat in the commander's office, fielding his 7th phone call from Warcom. Yes, sir. I understand the investigation will be comprehensive. No, sir, I have no regrets. Yes, sir, I'll cooperate fully. He hung up. Immediately it rang again. Let it go to voicemail, Chen said from the corner. He'd been there for the last hour, running interference, making sure Mercer actually ate something. Can't. Might be important. They're all important. You're the guy who just exposed a flag officer. Everyone wants a piece of you. Mercer answered anyway. Commander Mercer. Hawk, it's Mitchell. Her voice was tight. We have a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where Keating's lawyer just filed a motion claiming Vale fabricated evidence. They're saying she had personal vendetta, that her investigation was compromised by bias, and that her reassignment was legitimate disciplinary action for insubordination. Mercer's blood went cold. That's insane. We have documentation. Documentation that Vale provided. Keating's lawyers are arguing she could have altered it. They're trying to flip this, make her the criminal instead of him. Can they do that? In civilian court? Maybe. In the court of public opinion? Definitely. Hawk, they're going to try to destroy her credibility completely. And if they succeed, everything we exposed gets buried under reasonable doubt. Mercer stood up. Where's Vale now? I don't know. She left the operations center about an hour ago. Nobody's seen her since. Find her. I'm on my way. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Chen followed. What's happening? Chen asked. Keating's fighting back. And he's smart enough to know that if he can discredit Vale, the whole case falls apart. But we have witnesses, international observers, Pentagon officials, who all saw evidence that Vale presented. If a jury believes she fabricated that evidence, none of the witnesses matter. It becomes her word against a decorated admiral. They found Vale at the range. Not the main range where she'd taken the shot, but a smaller training area used for close quarters drills. She was running targets, fast, aggressive, each shot precise but angry. Vale, Mercer called. She didn't stop, reloaded, engaged another set of targets. Lieutenant, we need to talk. Not now, sir. Keating's lawyers are claiming you fabricated evidence. That made her stop. She lowered her weapon slowly, engaged the safety, turned around. Of course they are. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. It's the only play they have. Discredit the whistleblower. Make the evidence questionable. Introduce reasonable doubt. Then negotiate down to a slap on the wrist and early retirement with full benefits. That's not going to happen. Sir, with respect, you don't know how this works. I've watched it happen 3 times in my career. Good people expose corruption. Lawyers attack their credibility. Media picks up the controversy. Eventually, everyone gets tired of the fight and moves on. The corrupt officer retires quietly. The whistleblower gets blacklisted. That's the system. Not this time. Vale's laugh was bitter. Why? Because you're here? Because you believe in me? Sir, I appreciate what you did, really. But belief doesn't beat lawyers and PR firms and institutional power. Then what does? Nothing. That's my point. We expose the truth tonight. That's all we can do. What happens next is out of our control. Mercer stepped closer. You're giving up. I'm being realistic. No, you're scared, and I get it. You've been fighting alone for 6 months. You've been beaten down, erased, told you don't matter. But things are different now. You're not alone anymore. For how long? Until the lawyers make me toxic? Until supporting me becomes politically inconvenient? How long before you get reassigned and I'm back in some basement processing paperwork? The words hung there, raw and honest. Chen cleared his throat. Lieutenant, can I say something? Vale nodded. I've known the commander for 3 years, served under him on 2 deployments. I've seen him make a lot of decisions, some good, some questionable, all confident. But tonight, in that briefing room, that wasn't confidence, that was terror. He was absolutely terrified. Because he was betting everything, his career, his reputation, his future, on you being right, on evidence you provided, on testimony you gave. He did that knowing it might destroy him. So when you ask how long he'll stand with you, the answer is, until it's done, because that's who he is. Vale's eyes glistened. Also, Chen continued, I'm a sergeant. I've got no career prospects to protect, no flag officer dreams, no political ambitions. So if the commander gets reassigned, I'm still here. And I'm really annoying when I believe in something. Ask anyone. Despite everything, Vale smiled slightly. Mercer's phone rang again. He checked the caller ID and his expression changed. I need to take this. Don't move. He walked a few yards away. Admiral Reeves. Commander, I'm calling with an update. The FBI just arrested Admiral Keating. They found evidence of wire fraud, conspiracy, and violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He's being held without bail. Mercer felt something release in his chest. Sir, his lawyers are claiming Vale fabricated. I know. The FBI investigated that angle first. They found independent corroboration of every claim she made. Bank records, email communications, testimony from Sentinel Defense employees who were never contacted by Vale. She didn't fabricate anything. If anything, she understated the scope of the corruption. Then why are his lawyers? Because that's what expensive lawyers do. They create doubt. But in this case, the evidence is overwhelming. Keating's done. So is Brennan. And about 6 other people in the procurement chain. What about Vale? What about her? Sir, she needs to be vindicated, publicly, not just quietly cleared in some investigation report nobody reads. Reeves was quiet for a moment. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that the Navy publicly acknowledge it failed her, that it buried her investigation, that it allowed corruption to flourish because protecting powerful people was more important than protecting soldiers. And I'm suggesting that acknowledgement comes with her full reinstatement and a public apology. That's asking a lot, Commander. Sir, 17 soldiers died. Vale exposed the people responsible. The Navy's response was to exile her to a logistics desk. We don't get to quietly fix this and move on. We owe her more than that. You realize what you're asking requires admitting institutional failure at the highest levels? Yes, sir, I realize that. Another pause. I'll see what I can do, no promises. Thank you, sir. Mercer hung up and returned to Vale and Chen. Keating's been arrested, he said. FBI has independent corroboration of everything you reported. You didn't fabricate anything. Vale closed her eyes. Thank God. But we're not done. I just asked Admiral Reeves to push for a public acknowledgement from the Navy. A real apology, full reinstatement, the works. Sir, they'll never. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they're going to be asked. And if they refuse, that refusal becomes its own story. Either way, people will know what happened to you. Vale looked at him for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Because this morning I stood in front of 40 people and said you couldn't make a shot. I was wrong. But being wrong in private doesn't fix being wrong in public. If I'm going to admit I misjudged you, I'm going to do it where everyone can hear. And if the Navy misjudged you, which they did, they should have to do the same. That's going to make you enemies, sir. I seem to be collecting those lately. Chen's radio crackled. Sergeant Chen, report to the operations center. Commander Mercer and Lieutenant Vale as well. General Matthews is calling an emergency assembly. They looked at each other. Now what? Chen asked. Only one way to find out, Mercer said. They arrived to find the operations center packed. Every operator from the exercise, international observers, Pentagon officials, even some faces Mercer didn't recognize, probably investigators who'd arrived in the last few hours. General Matthews stood at the podium. His expression was grave. Thank you all for assembling on short notice. I've just concluded a conference call with the Chief of Naval Operations, the Secretary of Defense, and the Director of the FBI. I'm authorized to share the following information. The room went silent. At 2300 hours tonight, Rear Admiral Thomas Keating was placed under arrest for multiple violations, including wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, violations of the UCMJ, and conspiracy to commit espionage. Additional arrests are expected as the investigation continues. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The evidence supporting these charges was provided by Lieutenant Mara Vale, who conducted an independent investigation over a period of 7 months, despite being reassigned to administrative duties, specifically to prevent her from continuing that investigation. Her work has been independently verified by the FBI and NCIS. Matthews paused, letting that sink in. Lieutenant Vale's investigation documented equipment failures that directly contributed to 17 combat deaths. Her report was systematically suppressed by officers who are now under investigation themselves. When she persisted, she was effectively exiled within her own service branch. Vale stood rigid beside Mercer, her face carefully neutral. This represents a catastrophic failure of leadership at multiple levels, Matthews continued, and it requires accountability, not just for the corrupt officers being arrested, but for the institutional culture that allowed this to happen. He looked directly at Vale. Lieutenant Vale, would you please come forward? Vale glanced at Mercer. He nodded. She walked to the podium. Matthews pulled a folder from his jacket. Lieutenant, by order of the Chief of Naval Operations, your reassignment to logistics is hereby rescinded. You are immediately reinstated to full operational status with Special Operations Command. Vale's breath caught. Furthermore, Matthews continued, you are being awarded the Defense Meritorious Service Medal for your investigation work, the Navy Commendation Medal for valor in exposing institutional corruption at personal cost, and you are being promoted to Lieutenant Commander, effective immediately. The room erupted in applause. The international observers stood. Even the Pentagon officials were clapping. Vale stood there stunned, tears streaming down her face. Matthews wasn't finished. Lieutenant Commander Vale, I'm also authorized to convey the following message from the CNO himself, and I quote, "The United States Navy failed you. We allowed institutional convenience to override our obligation to truth. We punished integrity because it was uncomfortable. We owe you an apology that words cannot adequately convey, but we can start by ensuring your service and sacrifice are recognized by everyone who wears this uniform. Thank you for refusing to give up on us, even when we gave up on you." The applause grew louder. Mercer felt his throat tighten. He'd asked for acknowledgement. He hadn't expected this. Matthews shook Vale's hand, then stepped aside. Vale stood at the podium, wiping her eyes, trying to compose herself. "Thank you, sir," she managed. I don't know what to say." "Then let me say something," a voice called from the back. The British SAS commander stood. "Lieutenant Commander Vale, on behalf of the international observers, I want to thank you personally. The intelligence compromise you exposed could have cost lives in multiple nations. Your integrity protected not just American soldiers, but ours as well. That makes you a hero to all of us." The German colonel stood next. "Agreed. And that shot you made this morning? I've been in special operations for 26 years. I've never seen anything like it. You're an extraordinary operator who deserves to be recognized as such." One by one, the international representatives stood and acknowledged her. Then someone else stood, Staff Sergeant Chen. "Ma'am, I'm nobody important, just a sergeant, but I want to say something anyway. You made that shot this morning knowing it might make your situation worse, knowing it would draw attention you didn't want. You did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. That's courage I can't even comprehend. Thank you for showing us what integrity looks like." More people stood. Operators Vale had never met, junior enlisted who'd heard the story, everyone wanting to be part of this moment. Finally, Mercer stood. "Lieutenant Commander Vale," he said, his voice carrying clearly. "This morning I said you couldn't make that shot. I said it publicly, in front of witnesses. I said it because I made assumptions based on what I thought I saw instead of what was actually there. I was wrong. Completely, embarrassingly wrong. And I want everyone in this room to know that. But more importantly, I want everyone to know this. Watching you prove me wrong taught me more about leadership and capability than 23 years of service. You're not just a great operator. You're someone who makes everyone around you better by refusing to accept anything less than truth. Thank you for that." The applause was deafening now. Vale stood there, overwhelmed, trying to process everything. Matthews returned to the podium. "Lieutenant Commander, you'll be reassigned to your choice of operational units. Wherever you want to go, we'll make it happen. Take 48 hours to think about it." Vale nodded, still unable to speak. The assembly broke up slowly. People came forward to shake her hand, congratulate her, apologize for doubting her. Mercer waited until the crowd thinned, then approached. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I don't know. 6 hours ago I was career dead. Now I'm being promoted and given my choice of assignments. It's surreal. It's justice. Long overdue, but justice." Vale looked at him. "Sir, what you said about me making you better, you meant that?" "Every word. Before today I thought I was a good commander. Fair, open-minded. Turns out I was just comfortable. I judged people through my own assumptions and called it leadership. You showed me the difference between real leadership and just holding rank." "I didn't do anything special, sir. I just refused to disappear. That's everything. In a system designed to make inconvenient people disappear, refusing to go quietly is revolutionary." They stood in silence for a moment. "Sir, can I ask what you're going to do now?" Vale said. "I mean, you exposed a flag officer, bucked the chain of command, made powerful people look bad. That has consequences." Mercer smiled. "Probably. But you know what? I sleep better now than I have in months. Turns out doing the right thing is its own reward, even when it's terrifying." Chen joined them. "Boss, I just got word. Admiral Reeves wants to see you. Private meeting, tomorrow morning." "That sounds ominous. Or promising, hard to tell with admirals." Vale laughed. Actually laughed, free and genuine. "Welcome to my world, sir. Never knowing if you're about to get promoted or court-martialed." "At least we're in it together," Mercer said. The three of them walked out into the night. Above them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, the air cleaner. "You know what's funny?" Chen said. "Everyone's going to remember that 3,000-meter shot. It'll be in textbooks, taught in sniper courses. analyzed for decades. But the real story isn't the shot. It's everything that came after. The shot was just math, Vale said. What came after was choice. That's always harder. Math and choice, Mercer mused. That should be a leadership manual. Sir, with respect, nobody would read a leadership manual called Math and Choice. Fair point. They reached the parking area. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more investigations, more consequences. But tonight, 3 people who'd started as strangers stood together, having done something that would ripple through the military community for years. Lieutenant Commander, Mercer said formally, where are you going to request assignment? Vale thought about it. Wherever I'm needed, wherever I can do the most good. That's all I ever wanted. That's the right answer. What about you, sir? Any regrets? Mercer considered the question honestly. His career trajectory had probably just taken a hit. He'd made enemies in high places. The easy path forward was gone. No regrets, he said finally. I spent 23 years building a reputation. Turns out reputations are just what other people think of you. Character is what you do when nobody's watching, or when everyone's watching and it costs you everything. I'd rather have character than reputation. That's going to be a lonely position sometimes, sir. Good thing I won't be alone then, Vale smiled. No, sir, you won't be. They separated, each heading to their quarters, each carrying the weight of what they'd done and the uncertainty of what came next. In his room, Mercer sat on the edge of his bunk, thinking about the journey from this morning to tonight, from doubt to truth, from assumption to acknowledgement, from comfort to courage. His phone buzzed one last time, a text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer Walsh, congressional staffer who kept Vale as evidence. I just wanted you to know that because of what you did tonight, we're opening formal hearings into procurement corruption across the entire DoD. You changed everything. Thank you. Mercer stared at the message. Changed everything. Maybe. Or maybe they'd just done what should have been done months ago. Either way, it was done. He lay back, exhausted but at peace. Across the base, in her quarters, Vale sat with her promotion paperwork, still not quite believing it was real. From exile to vindication in less than 24 hours. Her phone rang. An old teammate from her counter-sniper unit. Vale, I just heard about everything. The shot, the briefing, the arrest. Holy hell, you actually did it. We did it, Vale corrected. I couldn't have done it alone. But you started it 6 months ago when everyone told you to shut up and accept the reassignment. You refused. That made everything else possible. After they hung up, Vale sat in the quiet, thinking about what it meant to refuse erasure, to insist on existing even when the system wanted you gone, to believe your voice mattered even when nobody seemed to listen. The shot this morning had been about proving capability, but everything after had been about proving worth, her worth, the worth of truth, the worth of integrity even when it cost everything. Math could calculate trajectory and wind drift and probability, but it couldn't calculate the value of standing up when standing up meant standing alone. That was the equation she'd solve today, not with numbers, but with choice. In the morning, investigations would continue. Lawyers would argue. Media would analyze. The machine of justice would grind forward slowly, imperfectly, but forward nonetheless. But tonight, in this moment, 3 people who'd made impossible choices could rest knowing they'd chosen right. Not easy, not safe, not convenient, but right. And in the end, that was the only measurement that mattered. Because shots could miss, investigations could fail, careers could end, but integrity endured, character persisted, truth, once spoken, couldn't be unspoken. 17 soldiers had died because corruption was more comfortable than accountability. Now because 3 people chose discomfort over complicity, those deaths would not be in vain. That was the real shot, the one that would echo longest. Not 3,000 meters across a valley, but straight through the heart of a system that had forgotten what it was meant to protect. Not comfort, not power, not reputation, but the people who wore the uniform and trusted that their leaders valued their lives more than their profits. That trust had been broken. Tonight, they'd taken the first step toward earning it back. Not by hiding mistakes, not by protecting the guilty, but by acknowledging failure and demanding better. Math was consistent, physics was reliable, but integrity, that was something chosen moment by moment, decision by decision, shot by shot. And sometimes, when the math was right, and the choice was clear, and the courage was present, the impossible became inevitable. 3,247 meters, 7 seconds of flight time, one perfect shot that proved what everyone said couldn't be done. But the real impossibility wasn't the distance. It was believing that one person, standing alone against institutional power, could make a difference, could change outcomes, could matter. That belief had been tested, had been proven, not by a bullet finding its target, but by 3 people refusing to accept that wrong was acceptable just because it was comfortable. They'd been told to stay silent. They'd chosen to speak. They'd been told to accept. They'd chosen to resist. They'd been told it was impossible. They'd done it anyway. That was the shot that mattered. The one measured not in meters but in integrity. Not in bullet flight time, but in courage. Not in precision, but in principle. And unlike bullets that eventually fall to earth, that kind of shot traveled forever, inspiring everyone who heard the story to ask themselves one simple question. When it mattered most, when everything was on the line, when the cost was highest and the path was hardest, did I have the courage to do what was right? Math could answer many questions, but only character could answer that one. Tonight, 3 people had proven their answer, and the world was better for it.